If you've entered a bill in QuickBooks Online but aren't sure how to mark it as paid, this video is for you. I'm going to walk you through where you can find unpaid bills, how you can mark them as paid, and even how you can group them together by vendor so that they will match up with what ultimately comes out of your bank account. Okay, all of this today is to show you how we ultimately get accounts payable, which is the process of entering and paying bills in QuickBooks, to match up with what ultimately comes through on our bank feed. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, in order to see a whole list of outstanding bills, we have a couple different things we can do. First, we can go to our accounts payable aging summary or detail, and we can access that by going to reports on the left-hand navigation menu, standard reports, and then going down to the what we owe, or yes, what you owe section right here. Okay. Now, if we want these reports to show up at the top, again, if we just click the little star right here, that report will then be up in our favorites at the top, but I will just go ahead and click on it for now as well. So you can see we have quite a few different bills currently showing as outstanding in QuickBooks, okay? And this gives us a really nice grid view. So it shows us what is due and how soon it is due, okay? Now, we can see only one item here is current. Everything else is in the 1 to 30 or higher aging bracket, meaning that some of these bills may actually be past due. So we want to go ahead and address these as soon as possible. Now, one thing that I will say is if you are paying bills through your bank or through a third-party platform, and the amount that you are paying is exactly the same as the amount of the bill, there is actually a slightly easier way to go about this. It's something of a shortcut, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So if I go up to bookmarks and then bank transactions, that's where my bank transactions happen to be. But if you don't have your bank transactions bookmarked, you can access those by clicking on accounting, and then bank transactions is the first one that pops up. So we can see some of these bills that were outstanding, such as that $900 one for co-working space and this $450 for business insurance. Those actually do have payments that have gone out that QuickBooks is offering as a match. Okay. Now, whenever we are matching transactions, we want to confirm our level of confidence in the match. Okay. So what do I mean by that? Basically, what I mean is this bill, this is the co-working space rent bill. This is a monthly bill in my business. So what I would want to do for this particular bill is I would want to make sure that the bill date matches up with the payment date. Okay. And this is going to be dependent on payment terms and what terms are extended to me by that vendor. But the bottom line is if I went to go and match this up and it turned out that this bill was from January or even December of the prior year, I might want to take a pause before I match it to confirm that there aren't any other issues at play, right? The thing is, if I don't match a payment that has a bill payment associated with it or has a bill associated with it up with that bill will continue to show as outstanding. And if I don't match it up, I will instead categorize the transaction, and that will lead to a duplicate of that expense, especially if I'm running accrual basis books. So we really want to be careful with this whole accounts payable process, and we want to make sure we are walking through it step by step. So again, I would say that this is a pretty high confidence match, that this is the bill that it is paying because it was on 3/1 and I paid it on 3/2, okay? And the amount matches up. So for this one, we can go ahead and match it. Now, what happens here, if we go back over to that accounts receivable or accounts payable aging summary, pardon me, we can see that now we don't have that $900 here anymore. So I didn't have to actually walk through the bill payment process to get that bill marked as paid. I just had to tell QuickBooks that that payment and that bill matched up, okay? All right, let's go ahead and look at another example of how we would want to walk through this bill pay process and match things up. So remember how I was talking about really high confidence matches? I do remember that in my bank feed, I had a transaction paying this particular business insurance bill. Let's go ahead and go back to the bank transactions tab and take a look at that, okay? So I see here, I have a bill for business insurance for $450, but that is from January of this year. So I might want to do a little bit more digging to make sure that this is correct and that there isn't a different bill or a different item that this particular $450 transaction is paying for. Now, usually if you click on a transaction and expand it, you're going to get a little bit more detail, specifically here under the full bank description section. Now, this particular file that I am working in is a sample file, plain and simple. So I don't end up having the same detail on my bank description section that you might on yours, because your bank is going to give you quite a lot of information about these transactions as they are flowing through. Now, I happen to know, because I created the bill for this example, that these two match up. But a couple things that I would want to do if I was not 100% sure and confident about that is I would want to check my accounts payable, aging summaries and details to make sure that there were no other outstanding transactions for $450. And I might also want to do a little bit more digging, because maybe logging into my bank platform would provide me with a little bit more detail about who I was actually paying, okay? Now, what I can do is I can go ahead and just match this up right here. And again, that will mark that transaction as paid. So if I select match and then again go back to my accounts payable aging summary, we see this list is just whittling down, right? So we've taken care of that 900 transaction. We've taken care of that $450 transaction. Now, let's go ahead and look at how we would pay bills that might need to be grouped together, okay? And here is why. If I go back to my bank, or actually let's look here first. I have two transactions right here for $310, totaling $620. Now, I know that I had a payment go out of my bank for that amount, okay? If I go into bank transactions, whoops, and look, sure enough, I have a vendor payment for $620, but you can see QuickBooks is not offering me any matches for this particular transaction. Okay. Now, again, this is a sample file. I know with full confidence that this is what I paid with that transaction. But if you had any questions, double check your paperwork, double check any bank information that you can find, double check your receipts. And if everything matches up, we can go ahead and match. Now, again, a couple different ways to go about this. First, I could actually hit match right here. And since there isn't an actual match available, that takes me to this screen where I can then select transactions that make up that $620. Now, the absolutely critical thing here is that if you are going through this process and doing this way, you want to be sure that the bank transaction amount and the selected amount match up. You don't want there to be any difference on this transaction, okay? So if I wanted to, I could go ahead and match that at this point. If I went back to my accounts payable aging summary, I would see that those transactions had been marked as paid. They're not hanging out on there anymore, which is great. But I'm also going to show you how you can actually physically walk through the process of paying bills, because there is some really cool information and some really cool detail that you might need to know on that page. So instead of matching this, I'm going to go ahead and close it, and I'm going to show you another way that you could actually mark these bills as paid. So if you go up to the plus create button up here at the top and then select pay bills, a screen will pop up with all of the transactions that are currently outstanding. Now I can see this has the same information on it that my accounts payable aging summary has on it, okay? So what's the difference between paying something on this screen and matching it in my bank feed? Well, a couple of things. First, I actually have the ability to select which account I am paying with. okay? And since some people do pay bills with credit cards and you might want to map it all out, you can actually select if you were paying the bill with a credit card. This would record a transaction in the register, which would then be able to be matched when the transaction clears the bank feed, okay? Now, I did pay this out of my business checking account. I believe the date was 3/24. And again, you can go ahead and enter the 4-digit date code. And I know it's saying invalid date, but it will accept that. Then, because this is an ACH transaction, I do have a numbering and naming mechanism in here already for ACH transactions. And that is ACH, 4-digit date code, 2-digit month code, 2-digit day code. Okay. So 2026-03-24. And what I can now do is I can select the bills that I am paying. Okay. Now, by doing this, I am creating a transaction for $620 that will show up on my checking account, waiting for an item to match to it. If I hit save and close right now, and then it goes right back to my bank feeds screen because that's where I was before, I now show that I have a bill payment instead of a bill to match this up to. Okay. And again, we can see QuickBooks is really smart. If there is something for the same dollar amount on or around the same day, it's going to offer it as a match. But anytime we have additional layers of complexity, like 2 different bills that make up a total here, QuickBooks might ask for a bit more detail and might need a bit more information from you in order to make that match up. Okay. Now, again, the date is important, but if I was off by a day or two, QuickBooks would again still have put this forward as a match. But I want to show you one more thing, which is how that transaction actually shows up in our bank register before we match a transaction to it. Okay. So if I go to the bank register right here, I can see that there is a bill payment for $620 on 3/24. Now, what I want to call your attention to here is that you can see some of these transactions have a C and little green boxes next to them, okay? This means that they have been brought through our bank feed. Ultimately, we want all of our transactions to have a match of some kind from the bank feed because it is going to make reconciling our accounts a heck of a lot easier. So what is going on with these transactions where we don't have that? Well, we can see here, we actually do have 2 bill payment transactions that haven't yet been matched from our bank feed. So let's go ahead and go back to our bank transactions tab. And then I can select match right here because we have this bill payment, and match right here because again, we have a match to a bill payment. And if I do those 2 things and then go back to my bank register, you can see now these 2 transactions have the cleared sign and have the little green boxes, meaning that they were brought through from the bank feed, which is ultimately exactly what we would want to see. Now, as the final step, let's go ahead and take one more look at our accounts payable aging summary to see what it looks like now. So again, reports, standard reports, and then accounts payable aging summary. And as we can see, over the course of the last few minutes here, we have actually paid all except for one outstanding bill, okay? Everything else got paid, everything else had a match in QuickBooks, or we could see that the transaction cleared our bank transactions tab, and then we provided QuickBooks with the information that it needed to match those transactions up and not duplicate them, okay? Let's say, for example, that I had not gone ahead and done that with those 2 transactions for $310. If I had left the bills on the books and open, and then I had classified that $620 transaction as conference or professional development expense, which is what it was, I would have ultimately duplicated that expense on my books if I were using accrual basis reporting, okay? If you're using cash basis reporting, that actually doesn't have a huge impact on your books, except for the fact that then if you ever run accounts receivable or accounts payable aging summaries, you're going to see open items on there that shouldn't be there otherwise. Okay, whether or not you're using cash or accrual basis reporting, if you are entering invoices or entering bills in QuickBooks, it is really important that you walk through the whole accounts receivable and accounts payable process so that all of your reports are complete and up to date. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Holly from Accrual Mistress Bookkeeping and Consulting. If you have any questions, please do feel free to leave those below. And don't forget to like and subscribe so that you are alerted to future videos.